Hi, I'm Tony B. My channel, The Bigger Picture. Enjoy this one.
My name is Justin P.
The same energy fields that enable people like Ingo Swann to leave their body and travel through space are thought to be responsible for causing objects to move. This rare talent for moving objects by force of will alone has been termed psychokinesis, or PK. Ninel Kulagina is a Russian housewife who has this ability. These films of her demonstrating PK were made in a Russian hotel room and smuggled out of the country by American researchers. She gets the object moving with gestures of her hands or by fixating the object with nothing more than her eyes. Kulagina has been studied intensively for more than 10 years by Professor Sergeyev of Leningrad University, who has reported on her work. These films and demonstrations are subjects of unending controversy. Is she a sensitive or a charlatan? According to those present at these demonstrations, it sometimes takes Mrs. Kulagina 2 to 4 hours to rev up her supernormal powers. Her pulse races to 250 beats a minute. She loses up to 3 pounds after a demonstration of psychokinesis. Edward Naumov is a Soviet researcher sitting to the left of Ninel Kulagina. He reports she was actually much sicker than she looks in the film. The strain on her heart was so great we had to stop the camera several times. It took us over 7 hours to make the film, and afterward she temporarily could not speak or see. For days after doing the tests, her arms and legs hurt. She felt dizzy and could not sleep. She described a sensation that usually heralds success, a sensation like that of a hot stream of energy traveling from the base of her spine up to the back of her neck and remaining there as if waiting for her to direct it. She adds ruefully that this hot current often leaves her with a bad headache. According to the Soviet view, PK is not accomplished by mind over matter, but rather by mind over force field. The Soviets claim they've already devised machines that create magnetic and other kinds of artificial fields that increase psychic powers, particularly telepathy and PK. According to Dr. Ravitz, in the 1951 Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine, the action of the sun and moon also affects the body's force field. Dr. Sergeyev agrees. The most favorable time for PK is during magnetic disturbances of the Earth caused by sunspot activity. What is beginning to emerge is a new picture of the human being, not an alienated creature, but a being enmeshed in an ebb and flow with everyone and everything around him. The pulsing magnetic fields of machines, Earth, moon, sun, the thoughts and emotions of ourselves and other people all affect the energy fields of our bodies, and in turn, the Russians say, our psychic powers.
From 1972 to 1997, during the Cold War, the CIA funded what was known as the Stargate Program to test if remote viewing could be used as an intelligence tool.
The very first, not talking about 1 out of 100, the very first Soviet facility we looked at was over in the Soviet Union. And it turned out our remote viewer, Pat Price in this case, drew a picture of a crane. And he said, I'm lying on my back on top of a 2-story building, and this crane is rolling over my head, and it's so large that a man is only half a wheel height. Well, when he told me that, I thought that was ridiculous. But in fact, it turns out that's exactly what the site was like. I don't know if you can see here, but in fact, that little dot there is a man. And so when we asked him, well, what do you think the site is used for? He said, well, I think it's for some space application. It was only after the Cold War was over and people from our country got to visit the location, we found out that, in fact, this was for a space application.
The old-fashioned theory was that remote viewing had something to do with the brain, sending and receiving electromagnetic brainwaves like a mental radio transmitter.
And so one way to attack that is to do experiments over longer and longer distances, and we eventually did experiments over continents and didn't see any degradation of the apparent, quote, ESP data. So distance didn't seem to matter, so that seemed to be a strike against the electromagnetic idea, the brainwave idea. We then put people aboard submarines, took them down to the bottom of the ocean. There's enough shielding of electromagnetic waves in seawater, conductive seawater, that should have blocked it out. In fact, the remote viewer said, oh, this is, quote, psychically quiet. I can do better than ever. So the major area that we're looking at actually has to do with the fact that although empty space appears to be empty, quantum physicists know it's not really empty. It's full of what we call quantum fluctuation energy or vacuum energy.
Hal thinks there is a mysterious energy pervading all empty space in the universe, including the cells of our body and our brains. He calls it vacuum energy, or zero-point energy. It might connect us all, in which case it might explain remote viewing.
It's our liquid nitrogen tank. Yeah, the reason it's called zero-point energy is that even if you were to cool the universe all the way down to absolute zero, where all thermal motions get frozen out, this energy still exists.
The CIA has done an exhaustive study on consciousness and has concluded that it is the source of all reality and that we can use it consciously to manifest our preferred reality. This is an actual CIA document that I pulled from the CIA website.
The law of manifestation clearly explained in declassified CIA document. Patterning. This technique involves use of the consciousness to achieve desired objectives in the physical, emotional, or intellectual sphere. It involves concentration on the desired objective, while in a focused 12 state, extension of the individual's perception of that objective into the whole expanded consciousness, and its projection into the universe with the intention that the desired objective is already a matter of established achievement, which is destined to be realized within the time frame specified. This particular methodology is based on the belief that the thought patterns generated by our consciousness in a state of expanded awareness create holograms, which represent the situation we desire to bring about, and, in so doing, establish the basis for actual realization of that goal. Once the thought-generated hologram of the sought-after objective is established in the universe, it becomes an aspect of reality which interacts with the universal hologram to bring about the desired objective, which might not, under other circumstances, ever occur. In other words, the technique of patterning recognizes the fact that since consciousness is the source of all reality, our thoughts have the power to influence the development of reality in time-space as it applies to us if those thoughts can be projected with adequate intensity. However, the more complicated the objective sought, and the more radically it departs from our current reality, the more time the universal hologram will need to reorient our reality sphere to accommodate our desires. Monroe trainers caution against attempting to force the pace of this process because the individual could succeed in dislocating his existing reality with drastic consequences.
What about the psychic children of China? I have found a research study from 1981 from the Chinese government labeled "Some Experiments on the Transfer of Objects Performed by Unusual Abilities of the Human Body." 1981. Special thanks to Reconsider.news for their coverage of this wonderful article. It states that this study reported that gifted children were able to cause the teleportation of small objects such as radio transmitters, photosensitive paper, mechanical watches, horseflies, and other insects, teleporting them from one location to another that was meters away without ever touching the objects beforehand. The experiments were operated under exceptionally well-controlled conditions, both blind and double-blind tests. The researchers involved included not only observers, but representatives from the PRC National Defense Science Commission. The experimental results were all repeatable. The conditions for fraud or sleight of hand were totally eliminated, and multiple independent outside witnesses, technical and military intelligence experts were present at all times to ensure total fidelity of the experiments. So this begs the question, what can we actually do? And if the governments of the world have concluded that these abilities are in fact real, I think it's time for us as people to accept this as common knowledge. Just like when Roger Bannister broke the 5-minute mile record. Once people start to believe that it's possible, others will begin to demonstrate even greater feats, and the world will have successfully shifted paradigms.
If you like these videos, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. And I've been saying, if you share these with someone, you never know how it may affect their life and change it for the better. Thank you. See ya!